So I promised that this retreat would be about not only Panchen Rinpoche's text, but also naked awareness. And Panchen Rinpoche brings the Gelug tradition together with the Mahamudra, as we've seen. He's pretty much finished. We'll have a brief dedication. We'll be finished with the text. So there's one great union, and I think he's done, I think we could all agree probably, it's quite a magnificent job of seeing how each of these traditions make sense to each other, right? But now in naked awareness, and in the preceding volume, for which this is kind of an appendix or appendage, there is the union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, and they're not identical, not identical. And so we've seen this kind of, I think with real clarity, how these four yogas map onto the five paths. And when is that point, that enormously important one, where you're not simply having one experience after another, which may be very meaningful, these nyam, but they're really entering into a current where you have flow. Ursula and I were just talking about this afternoon. You have a lot of wonderful experiences, this and that, but at what point can you say you're on the path, like you've entered, not literally stream entry, because that's for Shravakas, but when you're really on the path, and you know now it's just moving ahead, it's not just up and down, good days, bad days, and it's on that medium stage of single-pointed yoga, which corresponds to the medium stage of Mahayana path of accumulation. But the rapidity with which you're moving through that is quite striking. If we take a step back and look at these same five paths, just from the general, the so-called the common vehicle, the common path of simply the general Bodhisattvayana, this would take so many lifetimes, really so many lifetimes, if you're following this path and your vantage point, your platform, is that of a sentient being. And from that perspective, you have the potential of Buddhahood. Your Buddha nature is a potential. What you are actually, you are one and only one thing. You're a sentient being. Suck it up. But at least you have the potential, like I have the potential to learn Italian. I don't think it's ever going to manifest in this lifetime, but I think I have the potential to go beyond Buonasera and Molto Bene and Tutto Bene and so forth. But it's a potential, that's all it is, right? As long as you're operating out of that platform, your Buddha nature is something you have, and its potential, and what you are really, actually, even if not inherently, as a sent being, that's what makes for the long haul. And so whether it's a Mahamudra approach, whether it's a Dzogchen approach, very, very early on, as it said in the text, so you see it's not an interpretation, you are realizing emptiness with primordial consciousness. So I think I had a slip of the tongue yesterday, which from a physicist's perspective would be hilarious. I was talking about, just using the science fiction thing, go into warp drive, warp 1 and so forth. And I think I said black hole rather than wormhole. Did I say wormhole? Okay, because he would have caught me. I said black hole. I thought you heard me, because you know what I should have said. And black hole is hilarious. If you're going to go in a black hole, hang out there. You're going to be there for a long time. You're not going anywhere at all. Whereas wormhole is something black holes are very confident do exist, physicists. Wormholes are something that's implied by general relativity, and they may very well exist. And it makes for very good science fiction. And that's all it is, right? But it's a nice metaphor. It's a lot of fun. And so, but now this is not such a superficial metaphor. If we pause there just for a linger, and it's only a metaphor, I don't mean to take it too seriously. But if very early on the path, and get your Shamatha bodhicitta, and get that done. What are you waiting for? Why are you taking so long? Get your Shamatha Vipashyana, Shamatha and bodhicitta down, nail it, yeah? And then, so, on that platform, then go right into Vipassana. But as soon as possible, realize Vipassana, even though it's veiled by this generic idea and veiled by concepts, realize emptiness from the perspective of pristine awareness. Soon, early, as soon as possible. Right? Why? It's a wormhole. Because if you're realizing emptiness from the perspective of your coarse or subtle mind, just substrate consciousness, then you're locked in time. You're locked in time, and you're locked in locality as well. That's it. Your substrate consciousness is where you are, and it's at the time you are as well. Slip into call it the wormhole. Slip into Rigpa. You've just gone into hyperspace. I think that would be, it's too new agey, too cheesy. But hyperspace would be a pretty good translation for Dharmadhatu. It's space beyond space. It's hyperspace. It is. It's just too cute, too new agey. I'm not going to use it. But it's really not bad. You're slipping into hyperspace. You're slipping into a space that is beyond three-dimensionality of space. But not only that, you've slipped into, let's call it, why not, hyper-time. Because you're resting in the fourth time. When you're resting in Rigpa, you're resting in the fourth time. It's not located in past, present, or future. It transcends all three and subsumes or pervades all three. Just as Rigpa transcends space, but then permeates all of space. And that's where that's your locus. That's your locus. That's warp drive. What would otherwise take millions of years is a matter of hours. And so this is how you very rapidly proceed through the stage of accumulation, or the path of accumulation, the path of preparation. And then along this path, as you gain that second yoga, freedom from conceptual elaboration. It's called prapancha, by the way, in Sanskrit, prapancha. Freedom from prapancha. That is, it's truly contrary to whatever philosophers may say. They just don't know. So what can we say? They don't know. It's okay. But contemplatives know. This is the mode where your awareness is absolutely unmediated by any conceptualization whatsoever. And it's realizing, not just hanging out with a non-conceptual mind, it's realizing the ultimate ground. It's realizing Dharmadhatu in a non-dual fashion. Now, how do you then go into what warp drive? Moving through those 10 bhumis, and they take 2 countless eons. They say 1 countless eon up to the 8th bhumi and another countless eon from the 8th to Buddhahood. So we're talking about, traveling at 35,000 miles an hour. And so how do you do that? By warp drive. And in the Mahamudra tradition, the Kagyü tradition, I mean, we know this is kind of just universally what's actually done, is you're complementing your Mahamudra practice with the 6 dharmas of Naropa. And they're all stage of completion practices. And that powers you through. So those are the skillful means, and your Mahamudra is the wisdom, and you're using those two, and then that just jet propels you in warp drive right through the bhumis and to enlightenment very, very rapidly. So that's it. We're pretty much done with Mahamudra. But what about this union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen? And in Dzogchen, again, I've been introduced to or guided in a few traditions, not many, but of course, above all and overwhelmingly, the Dujom Desa, the Dujom lineage. And among Dujom Lingpa's 5 treatises in Dzogchen, only one even makes reference to stage of generation and completion. Only one. The other 4 don't even mention it. The foolish dharma of an idiot clothed in mud and feathers, the enlightened view of Samatha, Buddha without meditation, the sharp vajra of conscious awareness tantra. Those 4 make no reference to stage of generation and completion, and yet those 4 all present a complete path. Especially Buddha without meditation, it doesn't have the tutor, but even that can be a complete path. For very gifted ones, you can achieve rainbow body even without the direct crossing over. And so they don't have those. I mean, it's not part of the Nyingma tradition. These 6 dharmas have no rupa. But then what the Mahamudra tradition doesn't have is Turtgyal. It's not there. You can practice Dzogchen and Mahamudra. And so it's the Turtgyal that is your warp drive. And it's really specifically designed, as Yangzhen Rinpoche made perfectly clear, for people who can dwell continuously for a sustained period in Rigpa. Now, if you want to look for the gold standard, be a Vidyadhara. A Vidyadhara dwells in Rigpa without any conceptual mediation or filtration and can remain for hours and hours on end. Then there's no question that's a gold standard. Are you a suitable vessel for the practice of Turtgyal? Yep, you're ready. It's not to say you have to wait until then, but you are ready. But you're really not ready until you can dwell in Rigpa. I mean, that's what Yangzhen Rinpoche said. So many people are very eager to jump the gun on that one as well. But it may not be the best way to use your very short human life. And so, if we segue over to Dzogchen, since you know I'm absolutely passionate about path, What's the path? What's the sequence? Just have a general idea. What's the path in just straight Dzogchen? And in straight Dzogchen, they're just Dujam Lingpa. Refers to, as the whole Dzogchen tradition does, 4 levels of being a Vidyadhara. And the first one is a fully matured Vidyadhara. And here's just straight from the Vajra essence. But here's the path, and I'm going to be really short here. But it starts, so the first one is a matured Vidyadhara, or Namba Karasan, Namin Rikzin. And you become a fully matured Vidyadhara in that moment when you have a direct, unmediated realization of emptiness with Rigpa. Which means this corresponds to, he says, and I just quote, so there's nothing of me here. Due to the noble qualities of the vision of direct perception, that's an unmediated realization of Dhammadhatu, in which you are non-dual with, or it is non-dual with, Dharmakaya. May we experience the benefits of the sublime, very joyful stage, that's the first Arya Bodhisattva Bhumi, and the ground and path of a matured Vidyadhara. So he's equating those. There's the first one. We move right on, the second Vidyadhara. By the power of progress in meditative experience, this is the second of the 4 visions, may we cross over to the 5th stage, the 5th Bodhisattva level, or ground, known as difficult to cultivate, and may we attain all the noble qualities of ground and path of a Vidyadhara with power over life. That actually means power over your lifespan. You live as long as you want to. That's the second one. Corresponds to the 5th Arya Bodhisattva Bhumi. Thirdly, due to the virtues of reaching consummate awareness, the 3rd vision, may we cross over to the 8th stage, the crossing over. This is why it's called Tut Gel. Having achieved, with Shamatha, Vipashyana and Tekchut, the first Bhumi, a fully matured Vidyadhara. Now you start leaping. And you don't progressively go through the first Bhumi, second Bhumi, third Bhumi, fourth Bhumi. You just leap like a deer from the 1st to the 5th. And then you achieve the 3rd vision, and you leap like a deer from the 5th to the 8th. So due to the virtues of reaching consummate awareness, the 3rd, may we cross over to the 8th stage, known as immovable, and may we attain all the noble qualities of the ground and path of a Mahāmudrā Vidyadhara. 8th, that's the pure stage. It's extremely advanced. And then finally, by the power of the intellect transcending extinction into ultimate reality, where all impure appearances of samsara dissolve into Dhammatā forever, from your perspective. The 4th vision. May we cross over to the great 10th ground, known as the cloud of Dharma, and may we swiftly attain the noble qualities of the ground and path of a spontaneously actualized Vidyadhara, the fourth level of Vidyadhara. And so he doesn't give us any rungs on the ladder for the corresponding to this, to the path of accumulation and preparation. In that regard, the Mahamudra with the 4 yogas is very inviting. It shows you something that, a benchmark. Earlier than that, the single-pointed yoga. But it's really that, above all, it's so similar to being in a non-lucid dream. This is a non-lucid dream, from another perspective. And within the context of a non-lucid dream, and taking yourself even nominally, accepting yourself even nominally, as the individual in the non-lucid dream, right? Then you may meet gurus, you may meet spiritual friends, meet great lamas and so forth, and practice all kinds of stuff. Lojong, and Lamrim, and stage of generation, completion, all kinds of stuff. There's a tremendous array of practices, and still remain non-lucid. And from the Dzogchen perspective, it's say, look, the most important thing is become lucid, and then do everything else. But don't keep grinding away from a perspective that is true, but it's a superficial truth. It's a truth that obscures a deeper truth. this conventional reality that we are sentient beings and so forth. Yeah, of course it's true. We know it's not delusional. But it's so thin, and it obscures an infinitely more important truth, and that is our own Rigpa. And it's not just a potential. From up here it looked like potential. Down here, up there looked like pure delusion, pure fiction. A construct, a silly construct, as silly as thinking you're Napoleon or a kernel of corn. And from this perspective, all the arduous effort that goes into gradually cultivating the 6 perfections and the stage of generation and completion and so forth and so on. Dudjom Lingpa himself says, oh, it looks so tiring. Why are they doing that? Why not just wake up? And then proceed along the path from that perspective. So that's the wormhole. If you want to know, that's the wormhole. On the Dzogchen, it's just according to Dudjom Lingpa, and he is the most consummate teacher we've had of Dzogchen for centuries, 13 of his disciples. Then we look at the last 60 years of, let's say, Tibetan Buddhism gone globally, being practiced in Australia, North South America, Europe, and so forth and so on, in Tibet, India, and so forth. How many manifestations of rainbow body do we have in India, and Bhutan, Sikkim, Ladakh, Europe, America, South America, Australia? How many rainbow body? Nada. What do we all have in common in terms of the way Dharma Center is being operated? No shamatha. Give it a wink and a nod. Do a datun of shamatha and call it a day. So maybe there's a correspondence there, that we're missing something that not only Dudjom Lingpa, but he really emphasized. This is the first big step. Preliminaries, no question about it. But on that basis, the first big step, and he says this is indispensable. Padmasambhava said it's indispensable in natural liberation. And we're skipping something that Padmasambhava said in olden times and in recent times, and in his teachings for the modern world where Dharma will flourish in the cities of the West. The shamatha is indispensable. Fully achieve that, and now you're at a whole other base camp. Focus right in, take a breather, enjoy bliss, luminosity, and non-conceptuality for, give yourself at least 5 minutes, and then get on with it, get on with it and realize emptiness. And realize, and then just get on with it, and then cut right through that paper wall to receive the pointing out instructions. And he gives pointing out instructions, and I will pass on some of them during this retreat. Because that's the distinction. That's what you don't find. The kind of pointing out instructions that Dudjom Lingpa gives, Padmasambhava gives by way of Dudjom Lingpa. The pointing out instructions. And it's specifically, this is unique to Dzogchen. I've not seen it anywhere in these fantastic teachings of Mahamudra. Haven't seen it. Like what I see in one text after another, I think actually all of them from Dudjom Lingpa. Most of them direct transmissions from Padmasambhava. These drawing these clear distinctions. It's a little bit like Rushin, but it's not the same. Rushin, never mind that. But if you know what I'm talking about, good. If you don't worry about it. But it's drawing clear distinction between mind, conditioned mind, and Rigpa, between substrate consciousness and primordial consciousness. And he just comes in like a surgeon and just fillets. Comes the scalpel. And when you've identified the conditioned mind and you release it, you don't search for Rigpa. Rigpa was the one who was doing the meditation in the first place. Rigpa's what's left. And just release. So let's practice.